Thank you very much.
From New Jersey is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, for over 3 decades post-Tiananmen Square massacre, Congress was deeply divided, not between Republican and Democrats, but among the majority here and in the Senate, who favored unfettered engagement and trade without serious human rights conditionality. Indeed, President Clinton delinked human rights and trade on May 26, 1994. I went up there and gave a press conference. I was joined by a few others saying how serious that was to give up on human rights and allow profits to trump human rights. We've seen the brutal nature of the communist regime, especially under Xi Jinping, and the Chinese Communist Party's ultimate desire to see hegemony. Over the years, I've chaired 76 congressional hearings on China and authored several pieces of legislation, including the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, and was the Republican sponsor of Jim McGovern's Uyghur Forced Labor Act. We now have to make sure those laws are being faithfully implemented. 20 years ago, when China became a member of the WTO, most members of Congress, and certainly in the business, in the community and foreign policy establishment, bought into what James Mann rightfully called the China fantasy. In other words, if you just trade more with the dictatorship, somehow they'll matriculate into a democracy. That fantasy has been shown to be demonstrably naive at best. The CCP has become more powerful because of the trade and dual-use items that have accrued over there that are now being used by their military and by their police. I would note parenthetically, I chaired 2 hearings on why China should not be invited into the WTO, and no one listened. The record is clear, Mr. Speaker. As predicted, we have become more like them, and thankfully that is changing, but many in our corporate establishment, we saw with the Olympics, were standing right by Beijing and the CCP and Xi Jinping, wouldn't utter a word, including Coca-Cola and others, about the terrible killing of the Uyghurs and the use of forced labor camp. We have stood by as the Chinese Embassy and the Ministry of State Security have harassed people of Chinese heritage and nationality living lawfully in the United States. We have not done all that we could do for the people of Hong Kong, Tibet, and the Uyghur people in the autonomous region. But today, thankfully, we are turning a page. And I want to applaud our Speaker for pushing hard